All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. The two guests on the episode today are, I think that especially for people in Winnipeg, but also just music fans across the country, you are a very well-known quantity as a band, and we're going to get into sort of some of the history because you're celebrating the 25th anniversary of kind of one of your iconic records. But
Right.
before we even get started into any of that, I think the best way to kick this off is if the two of you want to introduce yourselves and what you do in the band, just so listeners can put a name to the voice. Whoever
Uh,
wants to go first.
I will. My name is Daniel Greaves. My half of my family pronounces it Greaves, but it is Graves, spelled Greaves though. And I sing in the band called the Watchmen, and play a bit of piano and harmonica occasionally when I'm allowed to.
And I'm Sammy Kohn, drummer for the band.
Singer as well.
Well, not really.
Well, and the reason we're doing this now, I mean, obviously there's never a bad time to talk about your band, especially here again in Winnipeg. You have a very good reputation, I think. Still, I mean, I'm 40 years old, so I started listening to you as a teenager, and I think that everyone sort of from my generation to the one just ahead of it, and maybe even the one just behind it, kind of grew up on your songs. And so today we're talking about the 25th anniversary of one of your, I think, was it your biggest album, or was it it definitely seems like it was the most
Well, it was a really big deal, and probably one of my favorites for sure. Our favorites, possibly. I don't want to speak for anybody else. It wasn't our biggest selling record. I don't think, because I think I believe In the Trees is our only one that went platinum. Silent Radar went gold, but it definitely, just the process and the songs, and it feels like where it sort of put us on the map. It was one of our biggest record. I would say that, even though it didn't sell as many as others, but right. Yes, it was a big record for us and a big deal for us for sure.
Well, I think just as a listener and as someone who, like I said, I was a teenager at the time, I feel like stereo in particular was on the radio and Much Music constantly at that time, and that it just seemed like you went from a band from here that everyone kind of knew, and In the Trees was another big one for me and my friends as a kid as well. But then suddenly that song in particular was just sort of all over the place. And from my teenage perspective, you certainly seem to have a larger profile from that point onward. So it's very cool to see that. It's kind of terrifying to think that was 25 years ago, but it's cool to see that you have this deluxe version with so many songs on it too, coming out the day that this podcast airs.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I was just reading not long ago. I can't remember the stats exactly, but I think stereo between like 98 and like 2002 or 2022 or something like that. I can't remember. The stats reflected the fact that it was within the top 20 most played songs at FM radio or something like that. I should sort of send you some detail on that, because it's a bit dodgy. But you're right. At the time that this album came out, there was a lot of support from a label. I mean, the funny thing is, we're talking about something so long ago, Sam, that it was at a time sort of pre-Napster, pre-Spotify. It was at a time when records were being promoted and artists were being developed, and we were on our fourth album. We were just kind of learning how to continue to write songs together, and it was a super exciting time for the band. But we're still kind of enjoying the fruits of our labor with shows we're doing now 25 years later. I think largely because of what we did back then, and how we sort of avoided a time when people were just buying records based on maybe a couple of singles on Spotify or something. Danny and I, I'm going to call him Gavin. It's his name. It's a long story, but we still get these little royalty checks quarterly that cover a hydro bill or something.
Nice.
And these are songs that were written 20
half a hydro bill.
Half a hydro bill.
We got to account for inflation, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's found money, it's mailbox money, it's what everybody wants when they're in a rock band. But it's, I say to my wife every quarter, I'm like, can you believe this? This was 25 years ago. This is a little piece of some songs that we wrote, and they're still getting played. And so it's the 25th year. March 30th was literally the 25th anniversary of Silent Radar, and yeah, we're putting this deluxe edition. We've put it together. It's coming out, and we're really excited about it.
Well, I still have the CD of Silent Raider. I actually have all of them on CD. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't this the one that had all of the like you guys were forward thinking on this one with all of the enhanced content, right? Was this the disc that had all of the website stuff connected to it?
Is that the one? You know what?
I think it was. Yeah, I haven't tried it because I don't have a CD drive anymore.
Yeah, it was. If this was the one, yeah, it was. We actually won. That was our only Much Music award we got. Was for digital ingenuity or whatever they were calling it. It was, yeah, it sort of had a code on it. And honestly, I never tried it. I'm embarrassed to say, but it had a code on it, and you punched it in, and then you got a bunch more content. And yeah, it feels like, it feels like it's like the 30s, compared to what's going on now. But we were one of the first to do it. I don't know. It was a company. It's a long time ago. I don't remember that exactly what happened. But yeah, it was just kind of, with one step, one foot in the future is what we tried, and it was pretty neat. I don't know how successful it was, but yeah, it was just good to. That's what you got to do. You got to sort of. You got to try the new things and do it and go to where the kids are at,
Yeah, well, and you obviously were there because I mean, a couple of years later, everything was online, and suddenly just everything moved from. And I mean, now, the amount of people who don't listen to physical media at all and just do everything on streaming is very high. So
yeah,
you were.
I feel quite grateful that we. I mean, obviously, it's a lot. It's easier to say, oh, what's that song, and then in 7 seconds you have it. In Wi-Fi on your smart speaker or whatever. But I am grateful that we sort of missed that and or dodged that, I suppose, where if people wanted to come to get your music and to play your music, they had to go into the store,
Yeah,
and buy it or come to a show, and that that was the way we grew up, and it's obviously not not the case anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you were sort of the last gasp for that. I think is late '90s, early 2000s, and that's right at your peak there.
Sure.
With this deluxe edition, I mean, not only do you have the album itself, but it looks like there's a whole ton of bonus content. It's something called the Lost album, which is just I'm hoping you can explain sort of what's on there, but that fleshes it out to a lot longer than the initial dozen or so tracks, right?
Sure. Sam?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always been a big fan of those sort of special editions for bands that I love. And I was really inspired recently by the Velvet Underground did a super deluxe edition of their self-titled album, I think their third album. It's already probably 10 years old, but I was just kind of tinkering around, probably Spotify or whatever. And I just thought, we've got the material, we've got this wonderful demo that we did about 4 or 5 months before actually recording Silent Radar. We did very comprehensive demos for this album, and the reason we're calling it the Lost album is because that version I think it's about 10 or 12 songs that ultimately ended up on Silent Radar, where the arrangements didn't change from the time we demoed them and the time that they got on what is now the final product. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. We were very, very well rehearsed. These are unedited, sort of 1-2 take tracks with minimal overdubs, but we worked with a kick-ass engineer, a guy named Matt DiMatteo, who went on to work with Big Rec and Danko Jones and whatever. And I always knew in the back of my mind we had these great recordings, but nobody had ever heard them. So that coupled with what we're calling the kind of raw unmixed version. We have an unmixed version of Silent Radar where a lot of the extra guitar tracks and vocal overdubs, it wasn't mixed yet. Bob Ludwig mastered this record, and it was mixed by Adam Casper, which is a pretty incredible combo. You don't want to fuck with that too much. But we thought it'd be sort of interesting for fans to listen to an unmixed version where a lot of extra bits were on these sort of very familiar songs. So those are the sort of central pieces to this reissue. And it ended up with some live tracks, some extra stuff, acoustic songs. It's 46 songs, which to me is something to be really proud of. A lot of special editions, you'll have like maybe a companion disc that's like a live album or something from that time or whatever. Like this is really, really comprehensive. And it's kind of like anybody who ever loved this album, this is everything that went into that album.
What was it like sort of going through all that stuff? I mean, I imagine you hadn't listened to a lot of this in quite some time before putting together the track listing for the special edition.
Well, like I said, I knew the demos were really good. I'm trying to sound humble when I'm, very proud of the demos that we did for the record. And I always knew for years and years, it was sitting in a shoebox in my storage room, that it was there. I approached a guy named Warren Stewart, who works with the catalog product at Universal Music Canada. And he said one email, sure, I'm interested. He helped us reissue In the Trees, which is the band's second album about 7 or 8 years ago. We talked briefly about what it would entail. He helped me with the track list a little bit, and then he digitized the music for us.
Oh, cool.
We sent it through to everybody. Joey our guitarist, was a big part of. He's got a studio, and he helped with some of the audio and some of the editing and fine tuning and such. I was just excited. I'm like, oh yeah, sounds great. Let's just throw it all in. And Joey's like, hold the fucking horses. Let's just listen to this shit, and let's put something meaningful together. And so the combination of everybody's enthusiasm just kind of ended up being what I think is a really, really great comprehensive package for our fans.
Do you think that it seems like the kind of thing that's maybe going to appeal to, I mean, obviously casual fans too, because they'll get to hear it in this new version, in this digital format, all this stuff, but it's going to appeal to completists, I guess, too, right? People who have probably seen you live a dozen times and that they want the demos. That's something that they've probably been after for years, or been trading, copies of tapes and things like that. Is it more for that kind of audience, or is it just for a broad section of fans?
Well, I think that I definitely think that our super fans are going to be into it, definitely, because I think about it from as a music fan, as we all started. Before we were music players and it was our jobs, we were music fans, and I think about the bands that I love, that we love, like REM and Squeeze, and well, I'll just stop there. I can't think of any off the top, any more than that. But I love hearing that stuff. I love hearing the what went into it, or like the live, or Crowded House. There's I guess because Crowded House is coming to Toronto in I don't know, a couple of months or whatever, and there's a live version, and I was there for it, and I said, oh, I love how he does that thing with his voice, to sort of usher in the keyboard solo or whatever. I can't even remember the song, but it's that kind of stuff that people that and we are music fans first and foremost before we are music makers, and it was always something that we loved to hear, like just sort of different versions of, oh, he did that different, oh, and it's like you tune the guitar down, or it's slower and the bass line's different, or so I think I'm sure people who are super into the record and have been will appreciate those sort of slight differences. Oh, the voice is a little louder, and the drums are quieter. Sorry, Sam, but or the drums are louder, or whatever. Like it's just sort of the different elements of the song, and sometimes takes a bit of a discerning ear to hear the differences, but that's even more fun.
Yeah.
It's like a scavenger hunt, and I know that's what I love about the bands that I love, and I hope that the fans will feel the same way.
Often, Sam, these reissues are an excuse for a record company to repurpose their product put it out there and sort of slap together maybe some new artwork or something. There's an old joke with the Rolling Stones. They put so much stuff out. It's, the headlines are never before in this order. I mean, it's it's very difficult to come up with different unique things for your fans, despite the arduous efforts of a record company. But we've never really done that with this album. So this is the sort of the opposite of that. It's not just a handful of live songs, circa 98, whatever. This is something that I think definitely, to answer your question, will appeal to the diehards. I'm hoping it'll maybe introduce the band to some new fans too, because the record still sounds really good. It's not a time-stamped, grungy, late 90s record. I mean, it's just, it was done really professionally with some of the best in the business at the time. I just dropped Bob Ludwig's name. He's the most successful recording master in history. Just sounds really, really good. And I hope that it'll get introduced to some new people as well. And I will also say, we don't take for granted the fact that a major record label at our stage in the game is even answering our phone calls. These people are very busy with what's next and what's paying the bills, but we there's still some clout there, I suppose. So, which is great.
Yeah, your name still means something to someone out there, which is awesome, right? That's what.
Not just our mommies and our daddies,
Yeah. So you have just from looking at your social media and everything, you have a lot of. It looks like you got a lot of shows happening, sort of surrounding this this release. What is the band sort of? How often are you going on a tour these days? Because I mean, it's been a while since you released new material. Obviously, this is it's a new release, but I mean, the last time you put out a new album was a few decades ago now, right? So, what does it look like as far as touring and playing shows for you guys?
Well, we have a decent schedule. I mean, now, and which I think, well, it's a longer answer, but I think now we play music because we want to, and not because we have to feed our kids or pay our bills necessarily. So it's really nice to have gotten and unexpected, to be perfectly honest, to get back to that place where. And then also extremely humbled that people still give a shit, honestly, that we still are selling out kind of the same rooms that we were selling out years ago. And, now people are bringing their kids to shows, which is kind of a neat generational shift. But I'd say a busy year for us is like 8 to 10 shows a year, and we're doing a few less than that this time, but we hit Winnipeg and do Calgary and Edmonton, and we're playing Newfoundland in a couple of months maybe. And it's just we're doing it. It reminds me more of when we were rehearsing in Joey's basement, because we just said, okay, we're gonna be rock stars, and then the whole our lives sort of, we started doing what we were doing, and now we're sort of back to that point where let's just go and play to 2,000 or 3,000 people, because they're buying tickets and they're showing up. And I took it, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I took it for granted while it was happening, and now I'm very humbled and appreciative that people are still buying tickets and shirts and CDs and vinyl and all the things that we sell.
There's shirts money? Where's my check?
Well, I mean, whatever. Me and Joey split it, but we'll figure it out. We'll do the numbers. We'll do the numbers.
You guys are selling merch behind my back here?
Year end. We'll do it year end. I have to. My cat's bugging me. I just have to feed my cat. So just
sure.
I'm listening.
Sure.
But,
it's all good. Yeah.
We just, to your point, Sam, we just announced November 18th, 2023, in a great room called the Danforth Music Hall, and the support is going to be Gary Lauris, who is the singer-songwriter for the Jayhawks.
Right.
Yeah, which was sort of sprung upon us. The promoters of the show ran the idea by us, and we were just like, immediately, yes, fantastic, sounds good, because we're huge fans. So those are the kind of things that for me, That's the most exciting thing about playing shows, is getting to cross paths with people who we kind of love from time to time, with be it festival shows, whatever. But that's a big one. We just announced that today, November 18, this year at the Danforth with Gary from the Jayhawks.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I guess like what I was wondering is, what do you think is? I don't know if you can answer this. Maybe you might be too close to the material, but what do you think is sort of the ongoing appeal of a lot of these songs? Like as you said a few minutes ago about there's generational fans now. You're getting teenagers coming with their parents and things like that, and they're enjoying the music. What do you think it is that kind of makes some of these songs stand the test of time, and people who are being introduced to them now are still getting the same feeling that people who heard them in their original context?
I think it's the singer, probably, like the number one
Yeah,
reason
yeah.
I think would be
That's
the
pretty
singer.
much exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
that's only the singer, really.
you know what, I think it's I think it's good, honest songwriting. You never know. I've said this a lot of times, but you don't, I would say, oh, that's a timeless song. Oh, that's really time. Like, you don't know
Yeah,
what is timeless. It needs to literally stand the test of time. So you don't really know what you're doing while you're doing it. And that's, and again, I get back to just how humbling it is that literally 25 years later or more, it's our whole career. I mean, we were rehearsing our first record in, dating my 89, 88, we were touring that record, and it's you don't really know what's going on while it's going on. And which is maybe good or bad or both, but you need to look back on it, or have the ability to look back on it, and which is exactly what we're doing now. These songs, this feels like a lifetime ago to me, this record, and some of these songs. But then at the same time, the band is still, active, not as active as we were, but these songs they're like old friends. And then
yeah,
and now, if you hear any one of these songs played, they're all kind of different. We've all, Sammy does a little bit of different thing, and I'm changing the melody a little bit. Like, we're all, we've brought this material to the present day. And I mean, if we weren't playing at all and putting out this sort of release, it would be, oh, what an old friend. But now,
yeah.
like, it is an old friend, but it's also, we play these songs when we play live, which we are still doing, thankfully. They all have that, they're all kind of current, and they're with us right now, even though they're old. We try and make them new every night. So that's a real beautiful thing, I think, because sure, it's nostalgia, but it's also songs people still want to hear, and songs we still like playing,
Yeah.
Yeah, to that point, if we're being honest, not all of them have stood the test of time, and we have several songs that just, for some reason, they've just kind of haven't risen to the top and been ones that we continue to play. It's, if you're in a band and you're lucky to have a handful of songs that you still want to play, that people still want to hear years and years later, it's a pretty amazing thing. But the ones that I believe that the ones that we still play have continued to, like Danny's saying, kind of evolve. They've evolved, and they kind of grow. And it's like, you can use the analogy like you never really stop painting. You keep going, and they have little bits that continue to inspire you when you're playing them. This sounds really sort of heavy-handed, but it's true. I mean, there's probably about half a dozen that are just really good, and I think we knew it at the time. We didn't know that we'd be playing them 25 years later, but we knew these are good. We're four music fans who have pretty discerning tastes, and there's a handful when we'd be listening back in a control room or something, we'd look at each other and say, that's damn good song, So
No, what we said at the beginning is about how this is going to be out sort of the day. I mean, the good thing about this being a podcast, someone could hear it the day it comes out, or they could hear it, 3 years later or whatever. So if you're listening to this now, I mean, go get the album. But where can people find it? What's the best way to sort? We're in this strange world, this dystopian future of the music is not necessarily obtained in the way it used to be, and there's so many different options. What's the best way for someone to find this album and to give it a listen whenever they're listening to this?
maybe I'll jump in. I mean, I should probably just say for the record, because we're getting a lot of comments about this. This is a digital only release. It's 46 tracks. And that's purely an economic thing. We would have loved to have made vinyl copies of this record for people, but to have 46 songs and 200 minutes of music or whatever, you're talking about 3 pieces of vinyl.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't something that we were able to do right now. That's not to say further up the road that we might not be producing some vinyl as far as our catalog is concerned, because I feel like there's a lot of demand for that. But right now, if anybody wants to go, it's going to be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all the sort of typical streaming platforms right now. And it's very cheap too. Not cheap, it's inexpensive. I saw that to pre-order the 46 songs, it was like $11.99.
Not bad, yeah.
Sort of unheard of. The label really wants to help us with this, and so yeah, that's the first place people could find it.
And then as far as potential future shows, again, someone could be listening to this at any time. What's the best way to sort of keep up with what you're doing as a band, as far as shows or anything else that might be happening in the future?
What's our website? What is it? The -watchmen.com? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, with social media, I mean,
that's true.
Website's fine. I mean, the website is sort of static for the most part, but the socials are where it's kind of up to the minute. So we're on Twitter. I think it's @Watchmen Band. It's easy to find us out there for sure. But yeah, thanks for asking, Sam. It's out there for sure.
Yeah, and I'll link to some of that in the show notes too, so people going to the podcast can just click from there and find you guys.
I want to also add that just because this is a music-based podcast, I try to throw this in whenever we talk about Winnipeg. Is I think I could safely say, on behalf of all of us, we're so proud to be a Winnipeg band. When we were young, and we used to open up for Queen City Kids, and these kind of the Harlequin, these kind of legendary Winnipeg bands. We thought that they were dinosaurs, which is kind of fun. We're the dinosaurs now.
They're dead. We're the dinosaurs.
Yeah, but we to the fact that I could say, in all honesty, I feel like we sort of there is a page in the history books where the Watchmen are mentioned in terms of sort of what was happening in the 90s, and that is the thing that I'm the most proud of, is being from Winnipeg, a city that has so much incredible talent. Neil Young, Burton Cummings, Randy Bachman, Propagandhi, Crash Test Dummies. I mean, there's so many of them. So we're a big part of that, and I love that. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there for your listeners.
Awesome.